So I'd like to welcome to the Way Back with Johnny show on this, our 2025 edition of the South Grenville Bluegrass Festival tribute. A dear friend of mine who I've been in contact for several years with and is a true pioneer of country music but also bluegrass music. Please welcome Larry Efaw to our program today.
Hi Johnny, I want to thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this for a good while now.
And it's a pleasure to be talking to you. So I hear you were up in Canada up here on the weekend.
I was. Just actually got back home about 2 o'clock in the morning. But we played the Napanee Country Music Jamboree up there on Friday. And we left there and we went to Park Hill, Ontario, Canada, up there at the Mud Creek Bluegrass Festival. This was their second year for it. It was nice. It was a pretty place, and everybody was nice and friendly, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you still coming up to Canada and that. And I understand you also have a upcoming Bluegrass Festival up in Spencerville area called the South Grenville Bluegrass Festival.
We sure do, and I am looking so forward to it. This here will be their 10th year anniversary.
That's right.
And I believe this will be my, if I ain't mistaken, I believe it'll be my third time there.
Oh, nice,
nice. It's a beautiful place, and Kim and Lisa, they've got everything all together, and they treat people right, the way they should be treated. They're wonderful folks, and they work hard. I tell you, it's not easy promoting these shows and putting these shows on. It's a lot of work behind the scenes. Then it's all done with. There's a lot of work for them, and they work hard, and I'm looking so forward to the 10th anniversary here, and I'm just glad to be a small part of it this year for them, and I'm looking so forward to it. We will be there for 3 days. Actually, the festival is August 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, and we will be there the 8th, 9th, and 10th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it's at Spencerville there at the fairgrounds. It's a beautiful fairground.
It sure is, yes. I've been there many a times, and I hope to see it this year, too, yes.
Absolutely, and I like the way it's laid out. A lot of festivals that we play, you're out in the hot sun beating down on you, and they've got tents, but a lot of times, the tents ain't big enough for everybody to get out of the sun, which
very true.
That's the nature of the music, but this here, it's all covered and it's nice in there and you don't burn up, and in case of rain or anything like that, the show can keep right on going.
That's right,
exactly. If you want to go back to your camper, you can go back to your camper.
That's right, yes, for sure. So let's go back to when and how your musical career first...
Actually, I guess I was just basically brought up with the music. My dad always played. Dad would get the guitar out and sing, and I was just always brought up with it. And actually, from the time I was able to talk and walk, I always loved the sound of the bluegrass music, the banjos, fiddles, mandolin, and so on and so forth. And I guess it was just probably in my blood,
Exactly, yes.
Before I was even on this earth, I heard it, so.
For sure.
I guess it just grew on me.
So you do have a musical background, I understand.
I do.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
I see. So would it be safe in saying that you first picked up the mandolin at age 7?
Well, that's actually when I first, at age 7, was actually when I first walked on the stage with my dad.
Oh, wow.
But I was probably around 5 years old, I would say. I told my dad and Mom both, I said, I would really like to play the mandolin, probably because it was a smaller instrument and I was little.
Yes.
And, but I always did like the sound of the mandolin, so.
Well, it's a beautiful sound.
It is. So Dad went out, and he went actually all the way up. At that time, we was living in Pennsylvania, but not too far into Ohio, and Dad knew this guy up here, and he had a mandolin that he told my dad. He said, if you want to come up, he said, I'll sell that mandolin to you for $35. Dad went up, and he bought the mandolin, and he brought it back, and he opened it out of the case, and he set it down, and he told me, he said, now don't you touch that thing. Well, at 5 years old, a little kid, if you tell them don't touch something,
they want to.
just like a kid with a piece of candy. If you lay a piece of candy down and you tell them, you know, don't touch that candy, what's going to happen? You're going to get that candy as soon as they turn their back.
That's right, exactly. For sure, yes.
I think Dad did it on purpose, you know, so I went and got the mandolin, and I didn't know nothing about it. I couldn't play it, you know. I couldn't even tell you if it was in tune or not. Dad really couldn't play the mandolin, but he did know 3 chords on it.
Okay.
And he showed, and he worked with me there, and I got the 3 chords down. Then he got his guitar, and he'd say, this is G, this is C, and this is D. And he got his guitar out, and progressively, you know, I was able to chop along with him and change chords. Of course, he would trick me sometimes. I thought he would just go G, C, and D, and sometimes he would go G, D, C, then G. You know, he'd trick me to see if I could, you know, change chords, watch his fingers change chords when he did.
Exactly.
And when I was able to do that, it was probably around 7 years old. That's when I actually started to walk on stage with Dad and with the band, and I stood back in the back as far as I could because I couldn't be any more shaky or scarier, you know. I was scared, you know, to be
For
that.
sure. Yeah.
Then I started, you know, from that point on, I started, Dad couldn't pick the mandolin, so I just got some records out, stuff like that, and basically taught myself. Went out to the festivals, you know,
and some 6 decades later, you're still doing it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Watching people, what they were doing, you know, with the mandolin, and asking some people if they would show me this or that or something, you know, I couldn't get, couldn't figure out. About 9 times out of 10, you know, they would do it. I was proud that they did.
I see. Now, I understand the Mountaineers was originally your father's band.
It was. Actually, my dad, prior to 1963, that's when he actually started Bluegrass band.
Okay.
But he had prior to that, for a couple years or so, played the guitar, and he had another guy who played the banjo.
I see.
And of course, it wasn't a 3-finger style, you know, like Earl Scruggs played. It was like the 2-finger style. Thumb and 1-finger pick there.
I see.
But it sounded, you know, it sounded real good. And they went more or less at that time like Lonzo and Oscar. It was more or less like a comedy show.
Yes.
And they called it Beanpole and Jughead. And my dad was Beanpole.
I see.
And they would take their pants, you know, and cut them different ways and wear different socks and goofy hats and all this and that. And Jughead, he moved off. A year or so after that, he moved off, and Dad had no one. So he just went around, you know, some of these places, some where they was playing bluegrass music at and stuff, and had stations, people just getting together and picking, and Dad finally found a banjo player and a fiddle player and stuff, and just put a little band there together, and they come over to the house and practice and play, you know, and stuff like that. Felt anyhow that they'd go out and do a few shows.
Yes.
So you'd just go out, you know, and do some shows, you know, here and there, you know, and stuff. And he, at that time, about the only place, you know, to play was in some lounges, you know, and stuff like that. And so they would go there, you know, and play 2 or 3 hours. Then he started playing for some square dances and stuff. And he got out of the bar scene. He wouldn't play no more bars and stuff. And that's when he got into the festivals and the stage shows and auditoriums, stuff like that. And that's basically when I started with it. 7 years old, I would say,
Okay.
when I started, yeah.
I see. And you've just kept the legacy and the band going.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah. Actually, Dad, about the last 15 years here, Dad's health, you know, got bad.
Of course.
With his sugar, diabetes, and hard for him to walk. Still had a great memory. He still wrote a lot of songs, and we're still recording songs that never been recorded that he has done before. Yeah, he loved, that was his pastime.
I see.
Was writing songs, you know, and stuff like that. And he came up with some awful good songs. And he told me, he said, you know, he had to get off the road because he was afraid of falling. It was hard for him to travel and stuff. He said, I want you to take the band. He said, just keep on going.
I see.
I told him, I said, Dad, I said, I've never did no MC work. He said, I've always been a side man, you know. He said, you can do it. He said, you've been with me all these years. He said, you can do it. And the first show that I did, I tell you, was just about as nervous as the first time I ever walked on stage.
Yes.
But I got by it, and people came up and thanked me for keeping the band going. You know, I told him, you know, the dad wasn't really able. He would still, you know, like if we was doing a local show or something like that, you know, within 20, 30, 40 miles of home.
But just not traveling.
He would still come out, right. He would still come out and get up there, you know, and sing a song or two. He couldn't stand very long, but he would do that.
I see.
And, you know, I just keeping on doing what he asked me to do, you know, and what he wanted me to do.
That's
you know?
right.
And it wasn't easy, you know, because I stood on stage with Dad for 45 plus years. All of a sudden, not having there, you know, you miss him. So it's just one of those things, you know, that it's definitely different, you know, but the only thing I got to think while I'm on the stage, I'm doing this, you know, for the people, for the audience out there, and hoping that we'll do something that they enjoy, and hoping that, you know, they'll enjoy what we're doing, and out there, the people is what makes it worth it.
Yes, I agree.
Sure does.
You also worked with Ralph Stanley, I understand.
I did. I recorded 2 CDs with Ralph Stanley, and Ralph asked me a few times. Well, actually, it started. Ralph was playing a festival here in Ohio, and I was 14 years old at that time. Well, Ricky Skaggs was his mandolin player, but Ricky couldn't show up that day for one reason or another. I don't know why, but Ricky wasn't there. And for somehow, I got enough nerve to walk up and ask him. I said, would you mind, Ralph? I said, if I would. I said, I play mandolin some. I said, would you mind if I just sat in with you on one or two songs, just jumping the mandolin behind you? And he looked at me and he said, well, do you know my stuff, son? I said, well, I think I do. And because I always loved the Stanley brothers, Ralph Stanley, and I said, I think I do. So he said, well, go get your mandolin. He said, we're going on here real quick. My goodness, I ran, and I didn't have a very, very good mandolin at that time, so there was a guy that had an old Gibson Lord there that I knew for so long. Actually, he's the guy that Dad went to Sebring High, and he gave me that mandolin, you know, or Dad bought it off of him for $35. And I knew he had that Lord there, and I went and tried to chase him down, and I just went running through that park. Finally, I found him. I said, can I play your mandolin? I said, real quick, and he said, why, sure. He said, but who are you playing with? I said, Ralph Stanley. He said, well, absolutely. So he walked real slow, and I'm like, hurry up, you know?
Exactly.
He went and got it, and he handed it to me, and I got backstage back there where Ralph was tuning up, just as he was tuning up, and I opened the case up, and he said, my goodness, he said, that's a lure, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is, Ralph. And he said, is that yours? I said, no. I said, I just borrowed it, I said, from a good friend of mine. And he said, well, get it out. He said, let's get it tuned up and see what you can do. And he started off on, I'm riding on that midnight train.
Okay.
And I stood there and just chopped on it, you know, a little bit. Halfway through the song, he said, come on. I said, well, when are you going to call me up? I said, does that mean I can chop a song along with you?
Exactly.
He said, no. He said, you're going to do the whole show with me. He
Oh,
said,
wow.
come on. And I tell you, I just started shaking.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yes.
Yeah, and then everybody knew me, you know, because it was my hometown, you know, everybody knew me there at the festival, and they started hollering up, let Larry play one, let Larry play one, let Larry play one. And pretty soon he said, well, we're in C chord here, he said, right now. He said, but we're definitely going to let this young boy back here, he said, play you a song. He said he's doing a good job. He said, we're going to let him, he said, but we're going to let him play it by himself. And oh my goodness, sweat started rolling down me. I thought I was going to pass out.
Yes.
And I said, my goodness. And I got thinking, I said, well, why don't we just play Cindy? I said, I think I can play that in C chord. You don't have to change chords. And Ralph said, okay, kick it off. And I did. And I kicked it off. And after the show there, my dad came up and shook his hand. That's the first time I ever met him.
Nice.
Yeah, my dad shook his hand. Dad thanked him and told him, he said it meant a lot to him. And he said, my son just thinks the world of you. He said, you're his idol.
Exactly.
And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He said, what's your name? And Dad said, Edward Efaw. He said, well, Mr. Efaw, he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He said, you see that motorhome right there? He said, I'm just going to take this boy with me. He said, I'm going to put him on the road with me.
Yes.
And my dad said, well, I think he really does need to finish school, you know.
Yes, yes.
He didn't know really how else to answer it, you know, and stuff. But every time after that, Ralph, you know, if he seen me and we was playing the same show or somewhere, he would always ask me, he said, "Get your mandolin?" He said, "Get up here and pick with me." And he got so, he said, "Do you sing?" I said, "Well, a little bit." And well, let's sing a song together, and we would, you know, we'd sing something. Then after Charlie Sizemore, you know, left the band there and stuff, Ralph called me and wanted to ask me if I would take the job, you know. And I told him at that time, I said, "Ralph," I said, "I would love to." I said, "That is an honor and a half." I said, "You know how well I think the world of you." I said, "I'd do anything for you." I said, "But I got a little family going here and stuff." And I said, "It's really hard, you know, to do that." And he said, "Well, I understand." Then in between a couple other members there, Sammy Atkins was one of them there. He called me again. He said, "Larry," he said, "I need you." He said, "Will you come out and do a couple shows with me this weekend?" He said, "I ain't got a lead singer." And I told him, I said, "Well, absolutely." I said, "I'll come and do what I can do for you." I said, "It probably won't be the best." I said, "I'll do what I can do for you." So I did them 2 shows with him, and afterwards, he said, "I just don't know why you won't come with me." I said, "Ralph, it ain't that I don't want to."
It's you can't.
Said, but, yeah, I said, "I got a family and got kids at home now and stuff." And I said, "But I'll tell you, because I got Ernie Stacker a job with him playing mandolin, you know. Ernie always wanted to play with him."
Yes.
And I talked to Ralph, and I got Ernie that job. And I told, at that time, I told Ralph, I said, "Ralph," I said, "you've got a good lead singer right there in your band right now." He said, "Who?" I said, "Ernie Thacker." He said, "He can sing?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "It fits you too." I said, he said, "You think so?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I know you ain't gonna lie to me." He said, "But I'd like to have you." I said, "I know," and I said, "I'd love to be able to do it too." So on the way home that night, I got a call from Ernie. He said, "Ralph just walked up to me," he said, "and gave me a whole list of songs, and he said, I want you to learn these by next weekend." So I don't know what made him do that. He said, "Did you have anything to do with it?" I said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "I told him," I said, "that he had a good lead singer there," and I said, "You better not let me down, Ernie."
That's right. Yes, for sure.
And he said, "Buddy," he said, "I really, really appreciate that." And he did, and Ernie did a great job with him and stuff.
Yes.
But I recorded 2 CDs with
Ralph.
One was "I Worship You," which is right now it's out of print, and I can't get it back because I sold it to Copper Pick Records. So yeah, Gary Reed and another guy at that time had purchased it. And I was supposed to get, they were supposed to come out with, that year Ralph didn't do a whole lot of recordings. He didn't do a whole lot of recording. And they was going to come out with like a 4-disc CD thing.
I see.
And one of them was going to be me on it, you know, me and Ralph.
Yes.
And stuff. So they bought it. They bought the master. They bought everything. I was supposed to get 1,000 box copies of it. And of course, they paid me good money for it. And now Gary Reed and the other guy now, he's down sick and stuff like that.
Of course,
and
yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get it, you know, and I don't have the rights to it, and I can't put it out. I can't do nothing with it, but
Wow.
a lot of people have been asking me for it. We recorded actually down in Louisa, Kentucky, down at River Track Studio down there.
Yes.
And they wanted to mail, you know, it to them, and they said, "No, we'll come and pick it up." So they drove all the way down to Louisa, Kentucky, and they picked that master up and took it home with them. They wouldn't let them.
Won't even let them
sell
hear
it to
it.
'em.
So, on one of your recent projects, you have a song called "Me and My Fiddle."
Yes, I do. That's really a good number. It goes over really well.
It's a beautiful number. We
Actually-
play all the time. Yes.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
That was really a bluegrass fiddler, Benny Martin.
Okay. Yes.
So, yeah, Benny Martin was, and you know, Benny Martin, he played with Bill Monroe, Reno and Smiley, Platt and Scruggs.
That's right.
Yeah, and he even played some with the Stanley Brothers, Jimmy Martin, Johnny and Jack. You know, he
Exactly.
played some with Johnny and Jack, yeah.
Amazing.
But he's the one to play that "Me and My Fiddle." That is played on an 8-string fiddle.
Is that right?
Most
Wow.
fiddles, most fiddles is 4 strings, you know.
Yes.
They came out now. There is a 5-string fiddle out there, but very,
Oh.
very few 8-string fiddles.
I see.
And Benny Martin invented that. Yeah, he's the one that invented that 8-string fiddle, and that's when he wrote the song, and he called it "Me and My Fiddle." And you don't hear it too much, and the reason why you don't hear it a whole lot, really, the 8-string fiddle has got to be tuned up totally different than any other instrument. It don't even tune like a mandolin. Mandolin's got 8 string, but the two strings tunes the same, like your E, A, B, and G string. They both tune the same. But on that 8-string fiddle, and me and my fiddle, each string is tuned different. And that's what gives it that unique sound.
Amazing. I never knew that.
It's a good song.
It sure is.
And we'll do that song up in Spencerville as well, yeah.
Well, I'd appreciate you doing that, yes, for sure. Now, another topic I'd like to ask you about is your appearances at the Grand Ole Opry. What was that experience like?
I tell you, it was a lifetime experience. I was so nervous standing in that circle where all the greats, stood, and it was just something that it's just hard to really explain.
Yes.
The crowd would just absolutely they were just unbelievable. And I didn't know if they would like us, if they didn't like us, but I got the opportunity to play the Grand Ole Opry 3 times, actually.
Amazing, yes.
And and it's just something that it just sticks with you. You just never forget it. All 3 times we was in little Jimmy Dickens' dressing room.
Okay, yes.
And we also see on Monday nights there too, after the Opry there, on Monday nights when they had fanfare in Nashville there at the fairground, on Monday they would have Bluegrass. They kicked the week of fanfare off with Bluegrass. And I was fortunate enough to play that 3 times too, and they really treated you good. They had sandwiches and stuff like that, and the sound was good. They just really treated you really good. At the time that we played the Opry, Hal Durham was the manager there, and he came up and shook our hands and talked to us and said he appreciates, that we keep the roots and the traditional, music going like Bill Monroe did, Jim and Jesse, and Bill Monroe and all of them, and stuff. And so that really meant a lot to us, but it was just a great experience, and I guess we were just at the right place in the right time to be asked, to be on it 3 times.
Exactly, yes. What is your thoughts between country music and bluegrass? I know a lot of people have different opinions on it, but to me, the bluegrass is keeping more to the roots of the music.
I guess I'm old school. I was brought up with the first generation of both country music and bluegrass. And actually, the difference between bluegrass music and country music is non-electrified to electrified. They both pretty much, is actually pretty much the same. A lot of the bluegrass songs, that you hear, even Bill Monroe did, and stuff like that. You hear it was brought in, a lot from Johnny Cash up to Merle Haggard to Buck Owens to all of them guys. Mm-hmm. And vice versa, Dolly Parton, she's done Growing in My Sweet Baby's Arms, and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same, but back on what you was really talking about, yes, you're right. The bluegrass seems to be keeping maybe a little bit more closer to its roots these days than what some of the country music is. But on the same end, there's also a lot of bands out there that is not doing it. A lot of them plugging in, and stuff like that, not using the microphones like Bill and that. When it started, they used one microphone, Bill Monroe, and all of them.
That's
they
right.
used one microphone. Everybody gathered around that one microphone, and they knew how to work that one microphone, and it sounded great. It was awesome. That was the best sound, anybody could get. But the bluegrass does seem to be keeping it a little bit closer, but there is a few of them out there that's straying away, from not that they can't do it. They basically can do it, but they won't. I think a lot of it is they're trying to reach out to some of the younger crowds.
I say yes.
And stuff, like Billy Strings. Take, for instance, Billy Strings. Billy loves traditional bluegrass music, and even on his shows, he'll do a lot of the Stanley Brothers stuff, Ralph Stanley stuff, Jimmy Martin stuff, Latin Scruggs stuff. He loves it. He literally loves it. But to make the money, and do what he wants to do, doesn't make him a bad person, or anything like that. But he can do anything he wants. He can do any style he wants, and I really like him. I really do myself. And I think he's doing a lot for the bluegrass music, because a lot of these young kids that he's drawing at these big arenas, sellout crowds and everything, they've never heard, Growing in My Sweet Baby's Arms, or Thank Strangers, or any of those songs, that the Stanley Brothers or the first generation of bluegrass music has done. They've never heard it. So I don't think it's going to hurt bluegrass music. I think it'll help it. People's going to want to come out. I know I keep it traditional. I keep it.
And that's what we love about you.
To the best that I can.
Exactly. What is your advice or encouragement to the younger generation who are just coming into music?
The younger generation, people that, newcomers and stuff like that. For me, bluegrass music did not change my life.
Okay.
It actually started my life,
Yes.
It got me, gave me confidence, more or less stand on stage, be around people, be upfront with people and talk to people and meet the folks and get to talk to them along with headliners. Back then it was Ralph Stanley, Jimmy Martin, Jim and Jesse. It gave me the opportunity, to get to know them and talk to them, and never one of them, never did they ever, not speak to me or anything like that.
Or thought they were better than you or whatever, yeah.
Exactly, no. They did not do that. There was a few of them, that might, after they got off stage, went to their bus.
Yes.
Stayed in there till the time of the next show, but I would just wait till there's not very many of them, but I would just wait till they came off the bus there, and I'd say, I'm so-and-so, I love bluegrass music, I play the mandolin, and they'd shake my hand, and they stay with us, son, but we're all in this together.
That's right.
Everybody's got to start somewhere, and I don't want anybody to get discouraged thinking that, well, this guy's a lot better than me, or that guy can do this, I can't do this. Every one of the people we just mentioned, they all started. They didn't start out, professionally or anything like that. So my thoughts is, and advice would be for the newcomers, just be around people, watch jam stations. If you got a mandolin, guitar, banjo, bass, whatever it is, get into the jam stations. Don't be afraid. Don't get worried, or anything like that. And don't get embarrassed, because we need these young people especially, or anybody, we need them. That's going to be the future of our next generation.
Very true.
This generation coming up. About anybody into the bluegrass, no matter who they are, or how long they've been playing or anything. We're all just one big family, in other words.
I see, yes, and that's the way it should be, yes. Now, did you ever have any memories of Bill Monroe, or did you meet, I'd imagine you met him.
I did meet Bill Monroe. Actually, I booked him, I met him before and talked to him, like at festivals and stuff like that.
Yes.
So when I started promoting the shows back in 79, early 80s, and stuff, I booked every one of them. Every one, the first generation that was still living.
Nice.
I would book once a month out here at O.J. Work Auditorium, and that's in Wadsworth, Ohio, out there. And we would sell out shows every month, just had them once a month. And we did just really actually just have Bill Monroe by himself. Bill Monroe and Jim and Jesse together, or we would have Dolos and the Country Gentlemen together, or we would have Jim and Jesse and the Lewis family together.
Oh, nice, yes.
And the Osborne brothers, and so on and so forth. But yes, I did meet Bill Monroe, and when I did meet him there, it was actually backstage at one of our shows. We went on right before him, and he pulled up a chair there and sat down beside me.
Oh, wow.
And he just started to talking, and he said, what kind of mandolin? He said, are you playing? And I told him, I said, it's a Stiver. And he said, I've heard of them. He said, but I never played one. He talked.
Yes, of course, yes.
Said, well, I said, I'll go get it and let you play it. He said, yeah, I'd like to play it. He said, before I leave. I said, all right. And he said, he said, I really like your style. He said, you got your own style. He said, like I've got my own. And he said, it's yours. He said, and I appreciate that. Well, I thanked him, and I told him it really meant a lot, to me coming from him. I told him, I said, I've tried to play your style. I said, there's some songs that I can do. I said, but there's some that I just never could pick up. And we talked about the music and stuff like that. And he looked at me and he said, son, he said, I am Bill Monroe. He said, you don't need to play like Bill Monroe. He said, you need to play like you. And I never forgot that.
Yes.
So, and he was very nice, and he was very friendly. Then we got talking about the festivals and about being on the road. It's not an easy life. I mean, it's a hard life. You don't eat right most of the time, and that, and if you're booked to be somewhere,
you got to be there.
You gotta be there.
Yes.
And no matter if you break down, you know, we would always get there. It may not be in what we left in, but
but you got there.
Or a U-Haul truck, or
yes, exactly.
whatever,
I hear
you know. But
yeah.
you just have to do what you have to do. I played Napanee. My bus was running just absolutely great.
Yes.
I pulled into a Flying J. I was about 45 minutes or so on to Parkview, Ontario.
Okay.
And I went up there to start the bus, and it wouldn't start.
Oh,
the
wow.
batteries were just barely clicking, you know, and stuff like that. So I called like 7 or 8 people to see if they could come and jump me, and neither one of them, nobody would answer the phone. It was about 8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And then finally I did get a hold of someone. I told them I need to jump, you know, and stuff. And I knew I didn't leave those lights on or anything.
Yeah.
So they did come and jump me.
I see.
And I got to the festival, and when I got back to the festival there, I shut it down. It wouldn't start again. And I thought, oh my goodness, my alternator's bad, you know, and stuff like that. So I had some nice gentlemen around there that went and checked it out, and they, you know, was working on it while I was on the stage. And because we just got dressed real quick and just did the stage, you know, you had to.
Yeah.
Because we was, you know, didn't want to be late, but we got there. And come to find out, it was just, and the batteries was basically, it takes 4 batteries, it's 24-volt system, but my 12-volt system wasn't working.
I see.
On it, but the brand new batteries that I bought in May, 2 of them was dead. They went and bought me 2 new batteries. I put it in, paid them, and came on home, and it's just running fine now. So that's, you just never know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a hard life out there. It's just,
that's right.
It's not easy, but when you get on that stage and you pull into that park and the people comes up wanting to shake your hand and talk to you, it just makes it all worth it.
Very true, Larry. So I have one more question for you, but tell us about the CD, The Old Home Place. That's another song that I play of yours quite often.
The Old Home, I tell you, I will tell you this, and I'll give it to you up there at Spencerville or South Greenville up there. We got a brand new CD. We just recorded it in May and just had it out last weekend.
Oh, nice,
so
Larry, yes.
Yeah, I'll make sure I give it to you.
Well, that'd be an honor.
The name of it's Your Letters Overdue. But The Old Home, I like that song. It's got some really, really good words to it, and it talks about leaving your old home, you know, and stuff like that, more or less leaving home, going out on your own, you know, and leaving your family, leaving your friends behind.
Yes.
And you're out there more or less, you know, alone, and you get lonely out there and you get sad out there, you know. Then it talks about, you know, when you do go back home, that your mother's there, you know, waiting with a smile and stuff. I just always loved the beat of that song, always loved the words to that song.
And the meaning.
And it does have a meaning to it.
Yes.
I really like the Old Home song. Carter Stanley is the one that really actually wrote that song there.
Oh, is that right, Larry? Okay, I see.
Carter Stanley was a great songwriter.
Did you ever know Carter or just Ralph?
You know, I got to meet Carter one time.
Yes.
At to a show where they was playing at, and I did get to meet him, but I was so young, I can just barely remember it. I know Dad and Carter was standing up there beside a tree, and they were just talking away, you know, and there wasn't a very big crowd there that day. It was extremely hot, and it was on a Sunday that they was playing at this park. But Dad did take me, and Carter was talking to me and stuff like that.
I see.
And I remember that show down there, Carter was telling my dad, he said, you know, it don't matter if there's 30 people in the audience or if there's 30,000 people in the audience. He said, you got to play just as hard to them 30 people as what you do to the 30,000 people, because he said you never know who's in that audience.
Very true.
He said you could come out with a record contract or another great big show, he said, or anything. So yeah, I did get to meet Carter, but I can honestly say I wish that I would have got to know him and I was old enough to really got to talk to him a whole lot more. But Ralph really just became more or less family, other than just, you know, a friend. He really did. Ralph would call me up, say, I'm needing this, I'm needing that, you know, I'm playing here. You might think you might be able to help me find another show to go along with it or two or something like that, and do my best, you know, that I could. And I never asked him for anything out, you know, out of order. Ralph never turned me down on anything that I've ever asked him.
Well, with that, Larry, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you at the South Grenville Grenville Bluegrass Festival coming up this month. Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to invite everybody out August the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th at the South Grenville Bluegrass Festival at the Spencerville Fairground, ran by Kim and Lisa, and I'll guarantee you'll have a great time.
That's for sure.
There's such a great lineup. Grand Ole Opry star Rhonda Vincent. Well, I'd say she's probably, or is, the most awarded female vocalist and band that's out there working today, Rhonda Vincent and the Rage.
Yes.
I just loved her. I just basically, we was around her when we were just kids when they had the Sally Mountain show. We would get out in jam sessions, and we didn't even care about eating, you know, we just wanted to pick and jam.
Yes,
and she will be there along with Larry Stevenson Band, another great band.
Yeah.
Kim and Lisa's band, County Road 44 will be there. CR5, Bluegrass, I believe they're there. Bluegrass 4, that's Bill White.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful person. He's going to be there. The Fiddle Layers, I believe, young kids, they're going to be there. It's going to be a great show, folks. Just come out and be with us, and let's build that campground.
Exactly, that's right. So with that, we'll talk to you soon, and it's been a pleasure, Larry, and I would love to have you back on the air at some point.
Johnny, I thank you so much for having me on, and I really appreciate everything, and want to thank you for all you do for the festivals. If it wasn't for you, you know, our music, anybody else's music is not going to be heard, and a lot of times they ain't going to know where the festival's at that they
Well, I
can go,
appreciate
you know?
that, for sure.
So,
Yeah.
greatly appreciate you, Johnny.
We
Thank
appreciate
for
you,
having us,
too.
and thank you for the fine show that you do, and thank you for keeping it real.
And God bless you. We'll be in touch.
Hey, you too, and I'll see you up there in Grenville.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.